So, Renfield from the year 2023, starring Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Well, technically it's starring some other guy, but I forget his name. I just want a real quick look, because he's technically not the main character, Nicolas Cage. But what's this guy's name? He's in stuff. Nicolas Hoult. So two Nicolases, spelt slightly differently. We got Nicolas Hoult as the title character as Renfield, so he's the main character in this. And then, of course, Nicolas Cage as Dracula. And I liked this movie. I thought it was fun. It's a shame that this bombed so hard. I thought it was generally a kind of interesting new take on Dracula. There were some things that I didn't like, but for the most part it was fun, and I really liked Nicolas Cage's performance. I always love his performances, typically, in a bad movie. He's the best thing about it. But this basic plot of this is Renfield, if you don't know, he's Dracula's familiar, and basically he's Dracula's assistant who gets Dracula his victims to feed on. And in this, they show via flashback, sort of using old silent film looking stuff with Nicolas Hoult and Nicolas Cage, and they show the story of Dracula really quickly, and they explain who Renfield was, that he was originally a realtor trying to make a deal with Dracula about one of his castles, trying to make some money, but then Dracula turns him into his servant and his familiar. And in this, they take the bug eating thing, because that's a part of the original movie, the original book, where Renfield eats bugs, but they actually say that familiars have a little bit of the power of their master. So he gets a little bit of Dracula's power, but like just a little bit of it, if he eats some bugs. So Dracula gets his powers from drinking blood of the innocent, and Renfield gets it from eating bugs, and just a little bit of the power. So that's the basic plot. Let's get into the Rotten Tomatoes score. So, not the worst scores, but I think the critic score should be a little higher in my opinion. 58% is low to me, and then 79% for the audience score, which is a little better. And I agree with the audience score. Like, this is fun. It's a fun popcorn movie. I enjoy Nicolas Cage. I could have used a little more Cage, but he's in there a decent amount. But I just wish that this was a movie more about Dracula than Renfield. Even though this was kind of a fun idea, I do wish that because Nicolas Cage is Dracula, they would have made it more about him, because he's maybe my favorite Dracula of all time. He did such a good job. It was very fun performance. But you have 58% for the critic score, but 5.8 out of 10 average, so it's the exact same as the critic score. 79% with the 4 out of 5, so that's close, an 80% average versus a 79% audience score, so those are pretty much the same. If you go by the averages and by the percentages. Anyways, let's look at some reviews. There's a spicier, punchier, and sillier movie trapped inside. Shame it couldn't be coaxed out. So they think it could have been a little better, and maybe they're right, but I don't think this was awfully bad. It made me laugh quite a bit, actually. I really like Ben Schwartz. He was another standout role in this. I really like him. He's John Ralphio from Parks and Rec, but he's also the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog in the new movies. Renfield is played for laughs, though with no shortage of blood and violence. That's a positive review, and that's true. I agree with that. I don't have anything else to say about that. Ultimately undone by its self-satisfied snark and bombastic CGI overkill decreed by the modern movie marketplace. I kind of agree with that one. I think the CGI is a little bit much in parts with the CGI blood. I just, for the most part, with fake blood, wish they would just do it for real. It looks so much better to make real fake blood. It always looks way better to me. That's one thing that I just wish they would never do CGI. I get that it's easier, and you don't have to worry about a cleanup and that kind of thing, but it takes away something else from the movie. It takes away that edge. That's how I feel. Anyway, Here's another review. This is a good one. The main attraction is Nicolas Cage's barnstorming performance as Dracula, played mainly for laughs, yet indicating careful study of his many predecessors in the role. Yes, you can definitely tell he's doing a little bit of Lugosi, and maybe others too, but I definitely got Lugosi, some Bella in his performance, and I like that. Go to the movie and have some fun. It's a gore fest, folks. Heads really roll. So there's a lot of blood in this, and I still enjoyed the blood. And some of it is practical, and there is some CGI, but I just wish there was less CGI and more practical. That's who I am. That's what I like. Nicholas Hoult brings a lot of energy and fun. He's always ready to spill into campy every once in a while, too. It's a great pairing. You know Nicolas Cage is living in that world. All right, yeah, I agree with that. One more bad review. That was a good one. This is a bad one. Renfield has some terrific ideas, hilarious moments, and a couple of incredible scenes, but it gets a bit ruined by having a bad guy who no one really wants to see lose. Okay, you know what? I kind of get what he means by that, because you got Nicolas Cage. You don't want him to lose. He's fucking Nicolas Cage. He's the coolest Dracula. You kind of want him to win, even though he's clearly the bad guy. So I get what he's saying by that. Would you ever review games? You've got a great review voice. Oh, really? Thank you. That means a lot. I could. I'm not a huge gamer, but I do like some games. I could review games. I've streamed some games, but not many. I've done like some Super Nintendo stuff, and I've done old school RuneScape. I could review games. I'd have to do ones that I really like, because I'm not a big gamer. I'm definitely more of a movie guy. But I do enjoy some specific games, usually older games. Sir Nog of Egg, thank you. Thank you for the question. Let's continue on with the review here. So, that was the the Rotten Tomatoes. So let's look at the IMDb. 6.4 out of 10 it gets on IMDb. Popularity is going up slightly, so that's cool. Good for it. Let's look down. I think the popularity probably went up because it's been put on streaming now, and more people are watching it now. Because it didn't do well in the box office, and we're gonna find out exactly. It bombed. This was kind of a big bomb, unfortunately. But we'll look exactly how big of a bomb it is when we get to the box office information. Nicholas Hoult is Renfield. Nicolas Cage is Dracula. We know all this. Ben Schwartz, who I said I love him. He's Tedward Lobo. That's his character's name is Tedward. That's funny because they just call him Teddy in the movie. They should have said Tedward in the movie. That's funny. Awkwafina, who's in lots of stuff now. She was in Shang-Chi. She's good. She's a good actor. And I'm just looking if I notice any of the other actors, who they are. And I don't really, but that's okay. The first four I do. Ben Schwartz, Awkwafina, Nicholas Hoult, and Nicolas Cage. Those are the four main actors, I would say. Anyway, but yeah, let's look at the box office info. Because I don't think it did very well. Oof, yeah, this was a pretty big bomb, unfortunately. $65 million budget, which is, a big-ish budget. And the gross worldwide is 26 million. Oh, fuck, that's rough. Not even half of the budget back. That's rough. That's a rough gross. I gotta say, that's too bad. But, I think that's it for the IMDb. So let's look at the notes we have here. Because I got quite a few. A little more than a page of notes. The definition of familiar is correct, but not exactly what I thought it meant. So, they start you off by explaining what a familiar is. And according to this movie, and also the internet, because I thought it meant something different, what I thought a familiar is, yes, the vampire's assistant, but I thought that they wanted to be turned into a vampire. Is sort of what I thought a familiar was. Is they serve the vampire for however many years, and then the vampire rewards their work by turning them into a vampire. That's what I thought that meant. But in this, it explains that they have a small portion of the powers of Dracula, and they have to eat bugs. And that's what it says on the internet. So I guess that's what a familiar is, and I didn't know. Because my definition of a familiar, what I just said, is sort of what it is in the show, what we do in the shadows. So that's why I thought every show and every vampire movie or whatever book, whatever medium, can have its own rules and its own lore. So I can't get too wrapped up in this. But I just wondered about the definition of familiar, and apparently that's what it is. That what did I say about what it is? Let's look it up right now. Definition of a familiar. Exactly what they say, because I forget exactly. Familiar vampire definition. Familiars are the servants of vampires gifted with a tiny portion of a vampire's power. A familiar becomes a lustful creature, pale in complexion, and desiring blood for sustenance. So it's a little different than the movie, actually, because they say bugs, and in this one, they're sort of like just like a vampire with less powers. So again, it just goes back to whatever lore you want to go with, because it's not real. So you can make you can make lore, make up the lore the way you want it to be. So I'm not going to read too deeply into that. Let's move on. Too much CGI blood. So I already said this, but I'll say it again. There's too much CGI blood. It should be real fake blood, even though that's an oxymoron. It just looks better always. Practical effects over CGI. When you can do it. Sometimes you can't, and it makes more sense to do CGI. But with fake blood, it doesn't. And I get that there's some big blood explosions in this, so maybe that's what they wanted to. But again, it would have looked so much cooler if they did real fake blood. Ben Schwartz is great. So yeah, again, one of my favorite characters. He plays the mob boss's son, who's sort of a spoiled rich asshole, who says, "I'm Teddy fucking Lobo" a bunch of times in this movie. And he's really good. Like I said, he's also in Parks and Recreation as John Ralphio, and he's the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog. But yeah, he's great in this. You'd think they would know his current location with cams all over the city, but they just go straight to Dracula's lair, like they find it. This part doesn't make any sense to me, because they show that this mob organization has all these cameras all over the city, and they're like, okay, we found out Renfield's latest location. We know where he is. So you're like, okay, they'll find him where he is, but they just go to the hospital, which is where Dracula is, and they say that's his last known location. But if you have all these cameras all over and you're looking at him all the time and you can see him so quickly, then why wouldn't you be able to find out where he actually is? That part didn't make any sense to me. I feel like they just were trying to look for an excuse to go to Dracula's lair, but that wasn't a good enough excuse for me. Moving on. But Nick Cage is amazing. Yeah, I don't think we need to go much deeper into that. He's great as Dracula. One of his greatest performances possibly. I think it's one of the best castings ever. Nick Cage as Dracula. He should have been Superman. That was going to be a thing. That's neither here nor there. I just felt like saying that. But yeah, Nick Cage is amazing. He has a great delivery of the line, "You are a husk." I can't do it, but he calls Nicolas Hoult a husk in this, and it's the best delivery. It's so good. How does Renfield have money for rent? So yeah, I don't know how Renfield makes money. He doesn't have a job. His job is working for Dracula, and they establish that they don't really have much money. They just go to abandoned buildings and shit. So how is Nicolas Hoult, Renfield, able to make money to rent this studio apartment that he has? It doesn't make any sense. They don't show where he's getting money. They never explain that. So I don't understand that. Wouldn't the support group catch on a little quicker that Nick Cage is a vampire? So Nick Cage comes in, And to be fair, he starts doing crazy shit pretty quick, so they start to clue in that he's a vampire. But I think they would have clued in immediately, because they start to sort of like treat him normally, like he's a normal person. But he comes into this meeting, and he's got the like sharp teeth. He's pale. He looks like a monster. His eyes are blood red. Like he looks like he's gonna kill everybody. And they're just like, "Oh yeah, have a seat and stuff." And it's like, no, I would be running. I'd be running immediately if someone like that came in. I'd be terrified. She accepts Dracula being real pretty fast. So they do this a lot in this movie, and I guess it works well enough, but people just sort of accept that Dracula's real, like, really fast. Like, okay, Dracula's real, I guess. It doesn't take that long for Awkwafina to be like, okay, let's go. You don't have to convince me that long. Dracula's real. Gotcha. Seems a little weird, and I feel like that could have been done a little better, but it's a nitpick. It's fine. I guess this is a different universe, hypothetically, so things could work differently, right? You could always make that argument. It's like an anti-hero or superhero movie, kind of. So yeah, it is a lot like, because this is action, horror, comedy, kind of, and there's a lot of elements of like a superhero or anti-hero movie. It's kind of like Deadpool in a lot of ways, because it's got the comedy, it's got the over-the-top blood stuff, and it has someone with powers, Renfield, sort of trying to do the right thing, even though he's maybe not always doing the right thing. So you could argue he's more like an anti-hero, like maybe like Deadpool for example. But yeah, I thought that this was kind of like that. It was a similar formula to the superhero and the anti-hero movie. Not bloody enough after the blood explosion. So yeah, this part didn't make sense. And again, with the CGI blood, then you gotta make it look real after the fact. If you have a big blood explosion, you should have people covered in blood and stuff. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, there's a huge blood explosion, and then everyone's like relatively dry all around, and it doesn't make any sense. So I didn't like that. Again, with the fucking CGI, they gotta stop with so much CGI in these movies. There was a mixture of practical and CGI, but too much CGI blood. That was the main thing for me. My next note is the sun didn't fuck him up as much this time. So you could argue that maybe he got away quicker this time. He was able to get out faster. But they show Nicolas Cage really getting fucked up with the sun in the first little bit of the movie. But then at the end, when he gets hit by the sun again, and they show him after he got hit, he doesn't look fucked up at all. So I think that even if he was only in there for a little bit compared to a lot in the beginning of the movie, I still think that he would have had like a little bit of scars on his face or something, but he's just like fine. So I don't think that made sense given the lore of this movie that they've presented with us thus far. Didn't make sense to me. So my next note is, why does Dracula just take the beating? This part makes the least sense to me. Nicholas Hoult Renfield is having his big moment in the movie where he's realizing that he has all the power, because they use these self-help groups as a sort of metaphor for him taking control of his life and not listening to his abuser, who is of course Dracula. And they have this moment where Nicholas Hoult is just beating the shit out of Nicolas Cage and just punching him in the face over and over again. But it's Dracula. Why is he just taking it? Like, he could just stop. His hands are free. He could have stopped him. He could have taken him out so many times, but he's just taking all these punches. And I don't think that's realistic. So I didn't like that. And of course they do end up capturing him and finishing him off in the circle. And that part makes sense. I think they should have captured him in the circle first and then let him have his moment. I think that would have made more sense. But they don't dispose of Dracula's remains well enough, in my opinion. Someone would argue no, but if you know Dracula, you know that he could fucking come back always. So what they do is they grind him up and put him into cement cubes and put him in the sewer or something. But I would have been gone a step further. I would have put him in 16 safes inside of those cubes, inside of something else, and inside a big like steel crate and like put it in the bottom of the ocean or something. Like I would have done more than they did to get rid of the vampire remains. But you know, it's fine. They did do quite a bit of work, but I would have done more for safety. Renfield should probably have to go to jail. But he doesn't go to jail. Yeah, like, it's been established, and Awkwafina is a cop in this, and she knows that he's committed all these crimes and killed a lot of people, even though he's been doing it for Dracula. Like, he's still been committing crimes. So, like, I think he should have to go to jail for a little bit. And he's even like, yeah, I'm ready to go to jail. And Awkwafina's like, nah, you don't gotta go to jail. And it's like, what? Why? He should, though. He should have to go to jail for all the shit that he's done. My next note is kind of lame that Dracula's blood is used to bring back everyone. I just think this is a cheap sort of plot device that they're like, they literally bring back everybody that you like. I think they should have kept the support group being dead, because that would have at least left something. But they bring back everybody with the fucking Dracula blood, because Dracula's blood can bring back people to life, apparently. And they just milk that one way too much, in my opinion. It's like, okay, so there was no consequences and nothing. Nobody died. Everyone's back to life. I thought that was kind of, except for Dracula, who we fucking want to come back, kind of. So I didn't love the ending. But overall, the movie wasn't bad, and I did like it. Overall, I would say. So, yeah, this movie, maybe a little over top of the CGI, but Nicolas Cage is great, Ben Schwartz is great. All the performances are at least decent, but Ben Schwartz and Nicolas Cage were my favorite in the movie. But yeah, it's funny. It's maybe not perfect, but I think it's a good popcorn movie if you're looking to just have a good time. And not wanting to think too much about the plot, because some things, like I said, don't make a total sense. But yeah, I did enjoy this movie, and I would recommend it overall. I'm going to give it a 7.6 out of 10. It could have been better, but it definitely could have been worse, and I think it deserved better at the box office, because it was kind of fun. Renfield, 7.6 out of 10 ducks.